in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, so welcome to a special Halloween episode of the Fragments of Silicon reviews. Indeed,
Approximately.
well, this episode specifically because we are starting things off by reviewing the game Outlast. Now, it's the token scary game we got in the lineup this week.
Mm-hmm.
It's also why we got 3 games this particular session. Anyway, first a note, if you're watching the video either live or recorded, you'll note that we've got a trailer going on here. It isn't because Petty Fan has the game, it's because, well, half the staff here are cowards. Who did not react well to the horror of Outlast.
Yeah.
Also, this game is really violent.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, so where to start on this? Well, outside of that, Outlast is, probably one of the more famous indie horror games in recent memory. Like, I want to say it's another one that was propagated by the YouTube Screamer set. See also like Amnesia, The Dark Descent, and others. And in terms of structure, it's definitely got the structure of an indie horror game. And what that entails is, well, a lot of running, a lot of defenselessness, a lot of light sources.
You are an investigative photojournalist. You do not have a gun.
No. I'm like, this is a particular blend of survival horror that's a lot older than people think. If only because not a lot of people have played the Clock Tower series, and they really should, because that was a really underrated series of games.
I've heard really good things about that, and that's one of the ones that I was able to read Let's Plays of.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. So I have bad experiences with horror. I don't even like watching people play horror.
I played the first game and the third game in their spiritual successor, Haunting Ground.
Yeah,
they're pretty good.
Okay, is it like did you play the actual first game or like the first game that got released over here? Because I believe like the Clock Tower series was subject to one of those weird numbering conventions, like the first game released here was actually the second game or some shit like that.
I played the Super Nintendo one.
Yeah, there we go. No, it's because the first game got a remake on the PlayStation, if I'm remembering.
Yeah,
it's been a while, but yeah, it's like, and if you've ever played the Clock Tower series, like the first one, well, you basically play Jennifer Connelly as she has to deal with, a serial killer called the Scissor Man. And that's actually a lot more relevant than it should be in this review, because holy fuck, it's like, this game doesn't pull any punches or scissors or,
Insert dismemberment device
Yeah,
here.
all you really get for setup for this is that there was an asylum that was reopened by a pharmaceutical medical company recently.
That's actually not true, because there.
Well, I mean, at the beginning.
Well, actually, it's because later on they released a DLC campaign called The Whistleblower, which is a prequel to this, which details how the whistleblower got his message to the detective.
Right. Yeah, I'm just talking about in the main game.
Fair enough.
You don't get a whole ton of background. Just you got a message from a whistleblower that they're doing some pretty fucked up shit in this asylum, and
Yeah.
that you should go and check that out. So maybe you can shut them down. And then you're a journalist, so you go to do that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you're heading to a psychiatric hospital called Mount Massive. It's your you know stock bedlam house. It's that when you think of creepy, decaying mental 19th century mental institutions, this thing's got you covered.
Don't
Mhm.
spare the patient abuse.
Yeah, I'm like, well, and that's kind of why Miles is investigating, because allegations of egregious abuse have been sent to him.
Mhm.
And so, like the idiot that he is, he decides to go alone and unarmed.
Yeah.
I'm like, if this were a horror movie and he wasn't the main character, he'd be one of the people who got axed.
Or, a dedicated pacifist journalist, I guess. But
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like I said, I'm still going to call him an idiot because, yeah,
He's too brave for his own good.
yeah. Well, it's like, it's also, he gets pummeled the fuck in this game.
Yes.
Not the least of which what happens later. And anyway, so the Outlast game here is also kind of old from our perspective. Originally released in 2013 for the PC and PlayStation 4. Xbox version came a little later. It's old enough where a sequel got released this year, a few months ago, actually.
and the reason why we're reviewing it now is because it was free on Humble Bundle recently.
Yeah, about a month ago they made it free, and I'm like, we wanted to do a game for Halloween, so that made for a good opportunity because it was free. Like, did try to get the sequel for for reviewing purposes, but that didn't pan out. Sometimes these things don't work. But that's fine. Anyway, let me see. So yeah, the gameplay is pretty much hide and seek. If I have to boil it down to its basics.
World's most hardcore game of hide and seek.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt.
Yeah, there's pretty decent emphasis on the it has open door slowly or quickly differences. It has you can duck and move around fairly well, and there's a lot of emphasis on the fact that you have a camcorder because that's your night vision, and when you don't have it up, you don't get to record notes on what you've seen because you're a journalist and you're trying to record stuff.
Right. And it's not just, hiding. It's also stealth, stealth moving, because there are sections where you have, basically like mental patient guards who move and obstruct your way. And there's not always a hiding spot nearby. So you've got to move carefully, do the crouch walk, the whole 9 yards.
And stick to the shadows.
And yeah, this game does the full gamut of horror, from not just, from shock horror to atmospheric horror to the fucking jump scares. Yes, there are fucking jump scares.
Yeah, one of the first scares in the game is a jump scare.
Mm-hmm. And it has really good suspenseful music to lead you up to those, and also there are audio cues in the music for when you've been seen or stuff. So
oh yeah.
You got to pay attention to the sound, which is further nerve-wracking.
Yeah, this music is very screeching violin. Is a good way of putting it. Like, and yeah, like I said, if you're of the faint of heart, yeah, look elsewhere. If I had to make a personal recommendation of a game like this, but far less bloody, far less, hostile Saw levels of violence, Canarium from, a few months ago. It's got a similar structure,
Yeah, but it's Lovecraftian horror, which is more existential dread and less fear of immediate bodily harm.
Right. It's less getting your fingers cut off with scissors.
Or getting impaled or decapitated or any of that, really.
Or your head
Yeah,
ripped
there
off.
are supernatural elements in this game, kind of more or less, but a lot of the scary stuff is not that supernatural. It's just
It's just,
yeah.
nutty people who want to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
This game isn't exactly the best framing device for the mentally handicapped.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the conceit here is that the evil corporation has been doing supernatural experiments, and that's what's really going on here. And that's not really a spoiler. That gets mentioned in like the beginning notes.
Yeah, literally there's a note on a guy's desk who the game casually walks you into that basically says, they've been doing experiments on people.
Yeah, with this weird, like, I'm trying to remember what the name was.
Mm.
Like,
What you trying to think of?
Like-
The project itself,
yeah.
Project Wall Rider.
There we go. So, and let's see. I mean, I suppose if there's an issue with this game is there's not a lot of variance in the actual gameplay, but I mean that's not what it's setting out to do. It's a fairly lengthy game too. Like a lot, like I put about 8 hours in and about halfway through. Like
Yeah.
I play more, but with the way our assembly line reviews go, got to move on to the next project.
Yeah. I actually managed to beat both the main game and the DLC. So.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
But I certainly saw enough to get my mind around what this game was going for. And yeah, it's like, if you're like Petty Fan here and you play games for empowerment fantasies, this is just the wrong genre to look because
Yeah.
I'm like, we give, it's called survival horror for a reason.
Mhm.
Although honestly, there are a lot of games that severely bend the definition of the survival horror.
Oh,
this is pretty straightforward. There are things that want to kill you.
Yeah, this
I
is
guess
the
the
classic
easiest way to
definition of it.
I guess the easiest way to
Yeah.
survive the horror would be just to not be there, but you're dedicated to your job and possibly stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The logical idea would have been walk out the way you came and never go back.
Yeah. But you can't do that because otherwise we wouldn't have a game.
Yeah.
And this isn't like Resident Evil or Silent Hill where your resources are limited or your combat skills are terrible to compensate for the fact that you actually have combat in those games. Oh no. All you got is 3 batteries and the truth.
Yeah, you have no form of self-defense whatsoever. You can't even, like... I guess
Yeah.
the most you can is you can push enemies off of you if they get too close, and then you still have to run.
Yeah. and-
Thankfully, the batteries are not consumed just by using your camera, basically. Although using the night vision does.
Mm-hmm.
Also worth noting, the difficulty level is actually adjustable. There are 4
Yeah.
levels, and the difficulty affects things like the amount of batteries you can carry, the amount of batteries you find. I think, like, not too sure on that, but definitely the amount of batteries you carry. Like, I think like the amount of mental patience you have to deal with, because I was reading an FAQ where there was supposed to be an attack, but there was no like the guy was just, he killed someone and he just stood there. I'm like, okay, I guess that happens at a higher difficulty level. So
Or AI broke, either or.
I played it on
Oh.
the easiest level because that was the last thing I needed to deal with. Is a game that makes me feel extremely uncomfortable playing it that's also hard.
I'm like, it can be. I'm like, I hesitate to use the word hard, but I'm like, this game is definitely a survival horror game, and the fact that the controls are kind of clunky.
Mhm.
Like, not maybe Resident Evil 10.
Yeah, it's not tank controls, but it's basic WASD, and
Yeah.
sometimes you have to line up. I mean, when you're climbing up the scaffolding to get into the building, you're not going to fall off unless you try to, really. But at the same time, I had to try a couple times to get into the gatehouse at the very beginning of the building because I wasn't lined up appropriately with the door.
Yeah. And also, this game is a tad unpolished, mainly because I kept getting hung up on architecture.
Yeah, that was a problem for me too.
And believe me, that pissed me off to no end because, yeah, I died to that more than once. Because, I'm running and I'm like, ah, shit, I'm fucking stuck on the wall somehow. It's just enough time to get, stabbed or clubbed or whatever. Like, like I said, this game is actually is probably going to last you a while. Probably less when you realize that, like a lot of indie horror games, there's a lot of empty space. There's a lot of, oh, hey, it looks like there's going to be stuff here, but there isn't actually stuff here. Like, if you
stake out set pieces.
It's not even set pieces. It's like literally empty rooms that just kind of there to maybe waste your battery.
Yeah.
I mean, they do have set pieces. A lot of them involving this really big mental patient who they warn you about in some of, Chris Walker. Like, he shows up a lot, and he's like an 8-foot man mountain who can break down reinforced doors and shit.
Yeah.
He's actually like your first real challenge. When you unlock the security gates and all of a sudden he shows up, you better be hiding in that locker and he doesn't see you. I mean, he's like, these guys are also stupid because, here's a bit of an immersion breaker. Several times these guys would open the locker next to me, but never open the locker I was in.
Yeah.
Probably because, that would be an actual bullshit ending, and that would kind of defeat the purpose of the camouflage.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like, okay, I get that you're nuts, but you were clearly cognizant enough to check one of the lockers.
I think they do that in Clock Tower sometimes, where like you're in a room and there are lockers to hide in, and there's also like another place to hide, and like he'll go and check the lockers.
Yeah,
or closet, as the case. I think it would be a closet.
Yeah, another immersion breaker I've noticed is that some of the enemies seem to have a certain out of bounds point where they won't follow you any further.
Yeah, that happens.
On the other hand, these are mental patients, so maybe they just have some kind of hang up.
Yeah, it is something that can be hand waved away.
Yeah.
Like, let's see. As far as like actual impact and all that stuff, I think this game was fresher in 2013 than it is now. Because, well, here's the thing, a lot of the aesthetic in this game I've seen in other indie horror games.
Yeah, this is one of the things that started the recent Asylum revival of indie horror games.
Not that was ever a particularly unused genre of.
There was a period where it wasn't used that often.
Well, it's important to realize that this game sold 4 million copies.
Yeah.
So,
so it kind of brought back the whole Asylum thing.
Right. Also worth noting, as far as the sequel goes, well, this kind of follows in the horror tradition of different characters, same universe deal. Beyond that, I don't know too much because, well, I haven't played the second one, and honestly, the second one is going for way too much right now.
Yeah, that particular flavor of sequel is used a lot in horror things because it allows for the possibility of terrible, terrible things happening to the main character of a game, and you don't know that they come out fine because there's a sequel.
Yeah. Well, indeed, let's talk price here. So regular price is $19.99 for the base game, and $8.99 for the Outlast Whistleblower DLC. So about $30 complete. But so here's the thing: we are recording this a few days before Halloween, and so the game is on deep discount on Steam right now.
Yeah, it's 80% off because
Yeah.
you know, Halloween sale. They're selling lots of horror games at pretty steep discounts.
Right. Well, it's also, keep in mind, this game is about 4 years old, has a
Mhm.
sequel, so they can discount it down to $4.99, and the DLC is going for $179. I mean, obviously, if you are into this, if you haven't played this game for some reason yet, these are, go now, go buy this now,
Yeah.
just go.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
And this is also something that's on regular sales and whatnot, so if you miss
Right.
it during the Halloween sale, it'll probably be in this Christmas sale.
Yeah.
As far as its regular price, that's $20-$30. Well, given its sale frequency, I would just say wait for another sale of this maybe not this caliber, but just wait for another sale.
Yeah.
20 bucks.
Yeah,
20
this is definitely worth somewhere between 10 and 20.
and then it seems to have the length and the content for a $20 game. Like, it's just, if you're like some of the team here and you're not into horror, don't apply.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
probably the best bundle going right now is the Outlast Trinity bundle, which I believe includes the second game. Yeah, it's like it includes Outlast 2.
First game, second story DLC, and third game or
Yes.
second game.
It's all of the Outlast, and it's going for $16.19. That's a very specific price, but even if regular price is $30, so you basically be getting one of these things for free at that price.
Mhm.
From what I heard, Outlast 2 isn't nearly as good as the first one. This is just based on what I've seen online. I can't verify that personally until like the day Outlast 2 becomes available to us, one way or another.
Mhm.
Tried to have Red Barrels, but I think they were too busy making the game to come on the show. Like, let's see. Anything else we want to say about Outlast here?
It's a game. Go play it if you like horror. If you don't, go find something else.
Yeah, the atmosphere is very thorough, which is good for people who want to be scared by a game. I guess the game itself has some trigger warnings basically on it, so
Mhm.
if those are things you aren't interested in, then this is probably not the game for you, because this is not a game about nice things happening to good people.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
the
this
second
game-
trailer on the site, basically, if that doesn't entice you, go look elsewhere.
Yeah, it should be mentioned there can be some really disturbing scenes in this game, especially in the DLC towards the end. I won't say anything about it though, but yeah, it's not for the faint of heart. And if you enjoy being disempowered and being scared, this game's for you.
Which there are certainly people who enjoy that.
Hmm.
It's why survival horror is a fairly popular genre.
Hmm.
Maybe not mega popular, but certainly there's certainly a market for it. Like, anything else we want to say on Outlast here? I think we're good.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's solid.
All right, so be sure to stay tuned as we move to our next game, Glow. Now, this is a game.
That's Glow without a W, which is relevant because there is a game called Glow with a W, and for a while I thought that's the one we were reviewing.
I'm like, you didn't actually buy that one, did you?
I did not.
Like, I mean, I suppose if you want to pick up the other Glow, you know, there's still time. But
Yeah.
you know, yeah. So Glow only I got, so I'm gonna be doing the heavy lifting here. Not that there's much heavy lifting. This is probably going to be a short review. It's one of those. It's not a mobile game. It's definitely not a mobile game port. The controls definitely show. This was made for, like, you know, you play it with a controller. It's a very simple game.
Mhm.
You know, it's not necessarily a short game, but more on that later. But it's definitely short. There's about 100 levels, kind of deal. That, you know, they're very bereft length kind of deal. Anyway, more on that in a bit after the break. And until then, I wish you good gaming.